The year is 1845. Sir John Franklin, a seasoned Arctic explorer, sets out with two ships, a crew of 129 men, and enough provisions for 3 years, aiming to chart the Northwest Passage. By all accounts, this was the most advanced, best-equipped expedition of its time. It vanished. In the subsequent decades, over 40 rescue missions were launched, piecing together a harrowing tale of icebound ships, desperation, and death. But what if the official story, the one we've been told about poor planning and harsh conditions, conceals a different kind of disappearance? A disappearance driven not by ice and scurvy, but by a discovery so profound it had to be buried. This video is what I found when I stopped accepting the surface account. Here is where the official record does something I've come to recognize. It narrows. The Franklin expedition's fate is cataloged under Arctic disaster. Details focus on navigational errors, the unforgiving climate, tainted tinned food. The official narrative suggests a tragic but understandable outcome for ambitious men pushing the limits of known geography. We're told, and I accepted this for years, that the North Pole was simply a bridge too far, a place where nature ultimately proved indomitable. This explanation is satisfying because it makes sense. It ties up loose ends with a bow of human hubris and natural power. It makes the world feel predictable, even in its extremes, and it explains all 129 men. It also explains hundreds more scattered across decades, on maps filled with ice from the wrong hemisphere. If you follow the thread further, and I want to be precise about how far I'm following it, you find a deeply inconvenient pattern. Less than a decade after Franklin's demise in 1853, the American explorer Elisha Kane launched his own expedition. His stated goal, to find Franklin. His unstated goal, to reach the pole. Kane returned a broken man, emaciated, his crew decimated, but his logbooks were filled with strange observations about a sea that was open beyond the ice, an anomaly scoffed at by the Royal Geographical Society. He never quite finished those sentences when describing the phenomenon. In multiple entries, he begins to describe vast, warm currents near the pole, only to abruptly change tack, shifting to mundane details about ice formations or the temperament of his dogs. It feels like a deliberate self-censorship, a conscious decision to back away from an observation before it fully formed in print. Only later, in private correspondence unearthed years after his death, does he hint at an unbearable magnetic anomaly that made navigation impossible beyond a certain latitude, an anomaly not mentioned anywhere in his official, published accounts. It's not the individual logs of Franklin's doomed voyage. It's not the evasive entries of Elisha Kane, writing of an open polar sea. It's that when you look at these two expeditions, separated by different nations, different commanders, and different stated objectives, one charting, one rescuing, they both encounter an unexplainable barrier near the same longitudinal range. And then there's the Andrey expedition. Salomon August Andrey, leading a Swedish balloon expedition in 1897, aimed to be the first to fly over the North Pole. 3 men, a hydrogen balloon, and an unprecedented amount of photographic film. They departed from Svalbard, and for 33 years they were gone. Their fate was initially attributed to the inherent dangers of early balloon flight and the Arctic's extreme weather. But when their last camp was finally discovered on Kavitoya, White Island, in 1930, their photographic plates, miraculously preserved, revealed something disturbing. Multiple frames of what appear to be unnatural geometric ice formations, and in one haunting sequence, what looks like a distant, massive structure on the horizon, not a natural formation. And the last log entry, almost illegible, speaks of compasses spinning wildly, their orientation completely lost, echoing Kane's unbearable magnetic anomaly. It's not the faded photographs. It's not the half-erased logbooks. It's that the 3 most well-equipped, ambitious expeditions of the 19th century, sourced independently, across 50 years from competing nations, all pointed to the same inexplicable barrier and a similar kind of navigational and perceptual distortion just before they vanished. I want to return to those unbearable magnetic anomalies that Elisha Kane mentioned in his private notes and that Andry's photographs hinted at. At the time I mentioned it, it seemed incidental. It isn't. I'm not arguing for ancient alien bases or a hollow Earth. What the evidence suggests is a persistent, non-natural source of interference, localized and powerful enough to disrupt all known navigational technologies, and possibly human perception itself, that was deliberately mapped and protected from public knowledge. The repeated disappearances, the consistent, strange reports across different generations of explorers trying to reach the same geographic point, the sudden and specific termination of all official attempts to breach a certain latitude. These are not coincidences. Sir John Franklin, in his last confirmed dispatch, wrote with an almost melancholic confidence of his continued northward progress. Elisha Kane, haunted by an open sea he couldn't explain, died young, his final correspondence hinting at a secret he dared not speak. Salomon August Andry, his final photographs capturing something impossible on the horizon, perished on a desolate island, his mission unfinished, his discovery buried under layers of ice and public narrative. The question isn't whether something was discovered at the North Pole that made it off limits. The question is how many more expeditions, how many more lives, were sacrificed to maintain that silence. Because it feels like a door that someone very carefully closed.